Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. So we've been discussing about the entry modes. It was the last session that we discussed. There are two types of entry modes, and let's assume that you'll be using the second type of entry modes, where we have the equity type of entry modes, where you do either JV or greenfield operation or acquisition. Okay, so that's basically aiming at full operation from the current operation that you have. Okay, okay. So it was where we at in the previous session, and let's discuss the next one. Look, one of the things that I would also like to bring into today's conversation is the strategic alliances, where it is quite critical for us, especially we are a new comer in that industry, in that market, or in that country. Some people, when I use the term market, some people confused. What do you mean by market? Well, yeah, you can refer to country. Okay, I'm used to use the term market anyway, because when we look at countries, for instance, from business perspective, they are markets. Okay, okay. So we have a couple of things in here in terms of the voluntary agreement of cooperation between firms. We have the contractual, for instance, non-equity based alliances. So there is, it is just, we just signed a contract with the other company. And the second one is acquisition, and the third one is merger. In terms of acquisition, there's a transfer control of one operation and management to the other, right? To the other firm. Okay, and merger also helps us in terms of the making a strategic alliance with the other company. In this instance, we combine the two operations and management of the two firms to establish a new legal entity. Okay. From strategic management perspective, when it comes to merger or acquisition, one of the things that I would like to highlight is make sure that it brings value for your organization. Okay. Normally, companies would consider the competitive advantage that they will gain after they acquire one company, or after they do the merger with the other company. Okay. In Australia, we have Vodafone and Three. I'm not sure whether you have heard that. You still recall there was a mobile network named Three Communication at the time, and they merged with Vodafone. And since Vodafone has a larger market share, they become Vodafone. Both companies merged to become Vodafone. Okay, and of course, the benefits of that is they can combine they can become a larger customer base, so their operation will be more feasible rather than two standalone companies, basically. Okay, so think about that. What's the benefit? Whether you can create larger value or not for you. Okay, the case of IBM and Lenovo is an interesting one. When IBM decided to sell their computer business, the PC business, to a Chinese player, we noticed that I think from the if you look at the in the broader perspective, there is a bit of worry that Chinese firms try to build their own credentials in high technological type of business, high technology business. Okay, but if you look at these two companies when they merge, okay, there are pluses and minuses, of course, and of course although IBM still has certain share of the market, they expect that the company would also benefit from more manageable operational cost, basically, because it is now a Chinese company. Okay, so yes, let's look at the from this business strategy perspective. What kind of competitive advantage that will gain if you do the acquisition or merger with the other firm? Okay. The other thing that we also need to consider when it comes to merger and acquisition is the corporate culture, because when we acquire a company, that company might have their own culture already. I think we discussed that in the previous session, where they may have you know, their own ways to do things. Okay. General Electric is an interesting one. They acquired a business in overseas in you know, energy and also healthcare category, and they basically changed their own approach actually. Okay, when Jack Welch was in charge, basically the company was pretty much a a centralized type of business where things were decided in the head office. And then Jeff Immelt replaced him, and they sold their major business at the time, the white goods business, which was one of the backbone of the company at the time, where for a little while the stock analysts penalized them. Why would you sell your own backbone? Well, actually, he used the money to purchase a company in overseas because they mentioned that, when it comes to our DNA as a company, we actually are the inventor. So we need to keep innovating. So we represent anything for the future. Okay, so they bought companies that are in, you know, energy and also in healthcare category. And they are aware that these guys already are good in managing their business. Okay, so they just you know, they change their style into more decentralized type of management basically. Okay, so be aware of those issues when it comes to strategic alliances. Where look, like human being, you know, when we make relationships, when we develop relationships with the other people, we also have a few issues in terms of whether we are compatible or not. So that's one of the big things that we also need to discuss. Okay. Right. Well, this is a few things. I just touched on the before the IBM and Lenovo and Campbell Soup Company and also Arnott's Biscuit, for instance. Back in 1995, Campbell's and Arnott's Biscuit came to a joint venture agreement, and then a couple of years after that, they acquired the other half of the company. So it was considered, the joint venture is always considered as the first step in terms of going forward to acquire the entire company. Okay, right. And look, this is the thing. When we operate as a multinational enterprise, there may be concerns of the local firms, and there are several types of reaction to the multinational enterprises. Okay, where if you look at two dimensions here, industry pressure to globalize based on low and high, and the other one is based on competitive assets, whether it's customized to home markets and transferable abroad. Okay, we have four types of action that that local firms may select in terms of their reaction to the multinational enterprise. Okay. Well, the defender strategy, they focus on the local assets in the areas where the multinational companies are weak. Okay. Well, arguably, the multinational enterprises may not be that strong in terms of the network. Okay, local network. Okay, they may have challenges in terms of expanding the distribution. Okay, if we compare to the local competitors. Okay, so the local competitors being in the market longer than the multinational companies, they know the local markets better. Okay, The extended strategy, they focuses on the leveraging the homegrown competencies abroad. So they nurture what they are good at in the home market, and they expand to the market overseas. Okay, so that's the extended strategy. So they counterattack basically. The Dodger strategy basically focusing on they cooperate with the multinational companies, okay, and eventually they may sell off to the multinational company, okay. So in the beginning they may form a joint venture agreement with the multinational company, okay? And then the contender strategy, which is basically about they engage in the rapid learning and they expand overseas. So they learn from the multinational companies, and they take the learning, okay, good, bad learning, and then they expand the business overseas. Okay, so there are some reactions to the multinational companies from the local business perspective. Okay? Well, Dick Smith is an interesting one when it comes to their action. Actually, they noticed that there are some international players coming to the Australian market. We look at, for instance, a number of local companies have been acquired by multinational companies, okay, mainly Arnott's Biscuit, for instance, Vegemite, an icon brand, an Australian icon brand, has become a multinational brand, basically owned by Kraft Foods, an American-based company, okay, and Dick Smith tries to run a campaign. Let me offer something Aussie to the Aussie consumers. Okay, so that's what they try to do. Okay, how successful they are, you can look at it from a different angle. Whether you can also ask yourself whether their proposition being, offering Aussie foods for Aussie consumers would be a compelling proposition or not for consumers. Okay, one criticism also suggests that yes, it is an Aussie brand, but they also purchase raw materials from overseas market. Okay, so that's one criticism that they receive basically. Okay, yes, they market the brands in Australian market for Australian consumers. They label that made in Australia. It is an Australian brand, but some of the materials are basically imported from overseas market. So people criticize that. If there's a case, then you are actually making rich the other guys as well in the overseas market. Okay, so I think it is an ongoing debate in terms of local content and also overseas content. Okay, which is quite an interesting one to look at in terms of whether made in, whether produce of Australia or produce of certain market has stronger values for consumers or not. Okay, in saying that, we also need to know that in some market, country of origin also plays an important role in consumers' decision making. In China, for instance, I think I touched on that issue some time ago, that Chinese consumers would prefer to have Western brands because Western brands have been considered as represents higher quality rather than the local brands. Okay, you can contrast that with consumers in Japan, for instance, where they are more favorable to the local brands over the overseas brand. Okay, right. So I think from the strategic alliances perspective, we have two if we draw a line, we have the market transactions, and on the other end, we have the acquisitions. And this is basically in the middle. In between, we have the contractual alliances or non-equity based. We can look at it from the institutional context perspective, resource-based view, or resource-based perspective, and social capital perspective, where basically the institutions, both formal and informal, will also influence the decisions that we make. Okay, the regulations in local market that refers to the formal institutions, and the values in the local markets. Okay, where it represents the informal institutions, also affects our decision. Whether will be engaged in the acquisition or the market transaction. Okay, how good we are in terms of understanding the local value, the local cultural value, will also affect whether we want to get engaged in a more committed way into that market. Okay, and definitely our resources. How much resources that we are committed. From the resource-based perspective, will also determine our decision, whether how committed we are in our strategic alliances. Okay? And of course, the social capital, the network that we have. Okay, essentially, doing business also, we also need to consider the network that we have, whether we have our business partner, the type of business partner that we have, basically. Okay, through the social capital. Okay, all right. So a bit of pluses and minuses in terms of the strategic alliances, whether we are going to make these strategic alliances or not. Okay, well, the big ones is the reduced costs, risks, and also uncertainties, because we have local partners. Okay, in that local market, we have local partners. We need to be aware that international operations is considered high risk. So exit strategy from the international operation is probably quite painful. Okay, we can access the complementary assets and learning opportunities from our local partners. Okay, and the possibilities to use alliances as the real options, whether we will engage in the more serious partnership with our strategic alliances. Right? Well, of course, like any other facts in life, it also comes with some issues. If we choose the wrong partners, well, yeah, it's painful to divorce the partner. Okay, it's going to be painful. Okay, and probably we also have potential partner who is the opportunism. So they just take the opportunity, and after that, they may leave us without, having a more serious plan to grow the business. And we also take the risks of helping, nurturing the competitors, which is basically part of the learning race. Okay, so there's some pluses and minuses as well here in terms of making the strategic alliances, entering the strategic alliances. Okay? All right, so again, this is the theoretical perspective. Again, as briefly mentioned before, look at the relevant regulations. And from informal perspective, we also need to consider that some local players, before they are engaged with us to enter the strategic alliances with us, how committed they are in terms of protecting their legitimacy. Okay, not to mention that you may, if you expand the business through acquisition or any other strategic alliances in overseas market, if you look at Asia Pacific region, for instance, aside from Australia, if you look at Asia, mainly they are family-owned business. Okay, they contribute a lot to the GDP. Some people estimate it's around 80% of the GDP is contributed through the by the family-owned business. Okay, they in terms of numbers, yes, they also dominate the entrepreneurship in Asia. Namely China, India, for instance. Okay, so and some of them become a large business in Asian markets. Okay, if you travel to Asia, a lot of business started from small business, family owned, and they become a large company, and they also make the product available in global markets, basically. Okay, so when you approach them to to create the strategic alliances with them, there may be challenges from the family business perspective. Okay, which is related to how committed they are in terms of protecting their own legitimacy, their own family legitimacy. Okay, probably the business is now managed by the third generation in Asia. So you may talk to the grandchildren, for instance, who has become the CEO of the company, and the grandchildren or the son or the grandson maybe more open when it comes to welcoming us to form the strategic alliances, but you need to also be prepared that before you shake hand, sign the deal, the grandfather may complain to the grandson, "What are you doing here? Okay, I built this business from nothing. Okay, I work very hard, and you want to get engaged with the other company, an overseas company. Are you going to sell this business later on? Okay, and where is my legitimacy in here?" Okay, so be prepared. Okay, it doesn't mean that you can't enter the strategic alliances with them. It doesn't mean it's just a matter of finding the right tune, so if you like, finding the right way to approach them. Okay, again, from the resource-based perspective, we, as discussed before, we need to ensure that when we form the alliances with their company, especially in overseas market, we also need to look at whether it is valuable or not for us, whether it helps us building a competitive advantage. Okay, now this is a FRIO model, aside from the SWOT model that we discussed in the presentation one. The FRIO model actually reminds us that is a kind of checklist for us, whether it helps us building the competitive advantage or not. Okay, whether it is an asset for us to in building the competitive advantage or not. Okay, the first test is actually about value. Okay, whether the alliances create value or not for our business. Okay. And the next one is rarity, whether the firms involved must have their own unique and rare skills. Okay, therefore we complement one to another. Okay, if you have similar skills, then it doesn't expand. We are not going to build on our skills to the next level in the competition. Okay, and the next one is imitability, basically, whether the firms that excel in the integration process hard to imitate the capabilities. So if we whether our capabilities are basically hard for the other firms to imitate the competition. Okay, and the last one is the organization, whether we have the strategic fits. Okay, the effective matching. Okay, and you may recall that there was a case where Lehman Brothers and Nomura. Lehman Brothers, filed bankruptcy years ago, and because of some people suggest that that's because they did the counting tricks to show that they can absorb the investment by their own capital. But apparently they did the counting tricks to show that. Okay, until they should finally file bankruptcy and lay off 3,000 jobs globally. Okay, but of course you can also argue that from ethical perspective that it was a big challenge for um, uh, the capitalism system, whether we can trust the system or not. Okay, from ethical perspective, right? Right. Well, in short, the Lehman Brothers, since they filed bankruptcy, their asset had become nothing. Okay, so they sold that company as much as €1 at the time. Okay, so Nomura, in another investment bank, another investment bank, they're quite strong as well globally. They thought if they purchased the Lehman Brothers, they would be able to expand their capabilities. Okay, so they purchased it. €1 only at the time. That's the how much the company was worth at the time after they filed bankruptcy. Well, apparently Nomura paid should pay a lot of money actually until they decided, well, it's not worth it. Okay. Because they need to ensure that they can look after the employees of the Lehman Brothers, okay, because the employees were feeling insecure at the time, and the top management of Nomura should pay them extra money to make them stay. Remember, in that business, the human skills, human talents also play an important role to make sure that they can still carry on with the strategy. Okay, so to make sure that they stay in the company, okay, Nomura should deviate from their own package. Okay, now remember, it is a Japanese-based, it is a Japanese company where they actually demand, culturally they require loyalty from the employees. Therefore, since they step up with their package to the ex-employees of the Lehman Brothers, there was a discrepancy between the package for the ex-employees of Lehman Brothers and also the loyalists. Sorry, I shouldn't use the term loyalists. Compared with the other Nomura's employees, and that creates a disaster for the company. Okay, well, that's just one of the issues that they had at the time when they acquired the company. Okay, so in short, what we need to do is to do the when we do the diligence, when we check everything before we come to the acquisition or merger, if you like, make sure that it really creates value for the business. Okay, it doesn't, in fact, neutralize the current capability that we have as a firm. Okay, right. Well, social capital network, as briefly discussed, it is actually the asset embedded in the network or relationship. Okay, you can also discuss that the company may have well, between West and East. You may also argue that the way we develop the relationship is different. Okay, in China, for instance, they focus more on the quanxi. We need to make friends first, and then we do business. Okay, that's quanxi. That means network. It is the Chinese word for network. Okay? In the Western style, well, let's do business first. Yeah, I think you are fair, a businessman, and then okay, let's celebrate it. We have drinks to celebrate it. Okay, so that's an interesting way to look at Lenovo and IBM from the social capital perspective. Okay, well, that's East meets West, which is quite interesting in the current global term. Especially, we have the trade wars between China and the US. Some people argue that well, it will be painful actually for everyone. No clear winner. That's what people argue. But anyway, let's see where it will end. Right, guys. Now the next thing, starting from the next session, I'd like to start our discussion on the building a business plan. After we discussed the entry modes, okay, let's talk about the business plan. That will include the marketing strategies, and also the operations. Okay, so there are the two main things that we need to discuss, because your assessment too is related to a business plan. Okay, essentially these are the things that we need to include in our business plan. Okay, including for our international operation, okay, international business strategy. Okay, the situational analysis, which is basically your past, okay, your 4 or 5 forces, your SWOT analysis, the objectives, the entry option, the target marketing. This is not trademark, by the way. Target marketing, the positioning strategy, marketing mix, your human resources aspect, and also the operations. Okay, so that's basically the one that we will deliver for our assessment too. Okay, any questions, guys?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Okay.
I do have one question. I must admit I didn't realise that somebody else was on at the same time.
Yeah, sorry.
How do we determine which business, or what is the best method of choosing the business of all the partners in the various groups?
Right.
Is there a recommended way?
Right. Are you asking me in the context of the group project?
Yes.
Okay, because there will be 5, 6 people in the group, and you guys will have 5 or 6 proposals, basically based on assessment 1. Is that the context of your question?
Yes, it is.
Okay, cool. I think I briefly mentioned in one of my announcements that, broadly speaking, I would leave it to the team's decision. As a rule of thumb, you may also look at you may also look at which one, which information that you have, which information is more accessible for you. Okay, that's one of the criteria that you also want to look at. Okay. Aside from that, I think it is more about the negotiation in the team. There's reason why I would recommend everybody to start that conversation. Hey guys, this is what I've done. Okay, just in a nutshell. Okay, you may post in your discussion in your group discussion forum. Guys, this is what I've done. Okay, just briefly, not in a nutshell. This is what I've done. Yada yada. Okay. Anybody else want to? What do you think, guys? If we use this business for our group project? Okay. One of the other approach that you can do is to do the voting. Okay, that is an approach. I do not expect voting, but at some point of time, you may come up, having 2 members, for instance, insist, I want this. Now, I want this. Okay, the other member may say, I want this. Okay, and that is when you can also ask the other members. All right, let's do the voting. Okay, now. I would also like to highlight, I like that question actually, I was aware already, and therefore in my previous posting I've given a bit of heads up without discouraging people from the communication. First, the keyword is communication in the team members, right? We don't want to leave it until the last minute because it will be a disaster. Especially our assessment 1 may be different. Okay, well, it will be different. Okay. Second, the business plan, the business that the company that the team has decided. Okay, the owner of the company, let's say the owner of the company. Okay, that the team has decided. You also have the responsibility to drive the process. Okay, let's say there are 6 businesses. Okay, and let's say John select company ABC, for instance. Okay, and he proposed that business, and everybody else approved. Okay, agrees with it. Okay, well, John has the responsibility to drive the process. Okay, to help the other team members to learn about that business, to access the information. Otherwise, it's hard for the other members as well to, to contribute. Okay, so yes, for the owner of that, for the original owner of that business, okay, it is a privilege. Okay, and of course that these team members should drive the process. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. Yeah. Does it answer your question, Craig? I know that is more like communication. The dynamic of the communication, the dynamic of the group will really will really contribute to the entire process, basically.
Yeah, no, I understand, and thank you. You've answered my question well. Thank you.
No worries, no worries. Okay, right. Ilton, any question from you, mate? Ilton, can you hear me well?
Well, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Sorry, I couldn't hear you before, but now, yes, I can.
We have some issues here. Sorry about it. I have a quick question. I have been trying to contact my group for a while now, and I have got an answer just from one member, Davis, I think it's his name, but the rest of the group is not replying my message, my email.
Okay.
And well, I think I just heard you saying something about the forums there. Yep. And well, what I'm gonna do is I'll go ahead and do what it just said now. I'll publish there that the work I did, etc. And I hope they reply back, but I'm quite worried because they are not replying me. And well, we are running out in time, and I don't know. Maybe I can like get in trouble in future. I don't wanna
look,
get it. Yeah.
I think it is just the fact, in life where we may have some passive members. All right. Look, if that happens, right, approaching the deadline, I may announce peer evaluation form. Okay. Where look, if the member doesn't contribute, I don't think that member deserves any mark. All right.
I agree completely.
Because I don't think it is fair. You work hard. You drive that. I think it is a fair game, I guess. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess if you go back to the assessment advice again, the step before we attack that, I would recommend you to do the group posting. Okay. Introduce the business, each member. Each member introduces their own business and market. Okay. Hey guys, this is my business. Look, you do not want to upload the entire assessment, okay?
Yes. It's just a summary. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Just a skeleton in bullet points, all right? In bullet points. Okay. Hey guys, this is my business. This is the market, right? And I did the analysis. This is where we are heading to. Okay. Anybody else can want to share their business? Let's discuss.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, and decide.
I don't mind if I have to I'm gonna contact Davis. Actually, I replied his email today, and I don't mind sharing the work with him, or I don't know what's gonna happen, or even if I need to do this alone, but I just need to know who is involved and who's not, because it's quite hard. It's quite big work to do.
Indeed.
Yeah, I don't want to keep waiting, and then get in trouble.
I know.
2 weeks, I'll be in trouble.
Yeah. That is a valid comment that you're making, Ilton. I appreciate that. So probably you also want to discuss in the group forum, okay? The target date. Hey guys, let's share this. Okay, what do you think? Can we make a decision by, let's say, week 8? So you have, or we are now in week 7. In week 8, let's make a decision. Which business, which market that you want to proceed. So you have around 3-4 weeks to complete that, to complete the assessment. Yeah, I think that week 8 or at the latest week 9 is a good target, I guess, to make a decision.
I completely agree.
Yeah. Okay.
Because as you said, it's a group assignment, and we need to deal like with schedules and different lives, etc. Well, I have done this many times before, many other groups, and what I learned from that is if you don't start to work early in the assessment, you get in trouble. That's why I'm commenting these things, and because it's a concern I have every time I get a group assignment.
Look, for this unit in particular, I agree with the school that in international operation always involves a team. It is a teamwork, team effort. It's not, you can appreciate that. In fact, we also need to work with overseas team members.
I think it's quite valid, this approach, and I think it's everything fine. Actually, I like to work in groups, etc. But I just get word like some members.
I know.
I don't know. I have been lucky and I have got some freeloader.
I know. No, we don't expect that. And if I hear that voice quite strong going forward, I may just publish the that rule of the game. Hey guys, you'll be marked based on your contribution, based on evaluation contribution.
I think it's pretty fair, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Any more questions, guys, about the assessment? Is it pretty straightforward, the assessment too?
Yeah. Well, I found complex, but I think it's I think we explained very well, and stocks. Maybe if I get like stuck in something, I will just flick an email and clarify. We have been very, very approachable, and you are replying quite fast, so I think I won't stop.
Thank you. Look, I understand. Online learners requires fast response as well from me. I am fully aware. All right. Any questions, guys? Any more questions?
None from me.
No.
And I'm all right. Thank you.
Brilliant. If there's a case, then I'll see you tomorrow, the next session. All right. Have a good one, guys.
Look forward to it.
Thank you very much.
Right. Cheers.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
You too. Bye. Bye.